Hello, everyone, and welcome to Spaceflight Now's live coverage of the latest mission from Vandenberg Space Force Base. I'm Will Robinson Smith, reporter with Spaceflight Now. So good to have you with us here on this technically still Saturday morning for folks there on the West Coast, Saturday afternoon here on the East. We're broadcasting from the Spaceflight Now News Bureau here at NASA's Kennedy Space Center. Hope you're all having a good start to the weekend. We appreciate you stopping by for our live coverage of the Starlink 17-9 mission, a flight of a Falcon 9 rocket that will send 24 Starlink satellites into a polar low Earth orbit. Certainly appreciate the nearly 900 of you who are watching along with us live as we're kicking things off today. If you haven't already, you could do us a big favor just by clicking that like button and sharing the stream, allowing some more folks to find their way into this live launch coverage. As Adam Hart says, it is a great day to go to space. One of our channel members there. We'll be keeping our eyes open for some comments in the chat, but if you want to have your comment or query elevated for discussion, you can always use the YouTube Super Chat feature, and that will make it far more prominent. Not only will it be giving us some interesting things to talk about as we cruise on through the count, but you'll also be supporting what we do here at Spaceflight Now, and that, my friends, is always greatly appreciated. Speaking of folks like Adam Hart, we are powered in no small part by our wonderful channel member community here on YouTube. So thanks to folks like Chuck Close, the Rocket Girl, Sulfur for Lunch, Distributor 69, The Friar, John Torrance, Ein Lita, and many others. Channel membership comes with a number of perks, including discounts at our online shop, which is shop.spaceflightnow.com, access to member-only videos here on YouTube, access to our members-only Discord server, and of course the ability to watch all of our live launch liftoff moments from here in Florida in 4K. Speaking of, I want to thank Chuck Close for a very generous $25 super chat. Thank you, Chuck. Appreciate your support this afternoon. Also want to thank our moderators of the day, Rick Donner, Jeff Hansen, holding it down in the chat. You can help make the moderator's job that much easier just by following the rules of our live chat. We ask that you converse in English so that the mods can respond as appropriate. That you hold off from delving into overt politics or religion and don't use all caps. Emojis are perfectly fine, but we just ask that you don't create a huge block of them so that they take up a large percentage of the chat for others to talk. And last but certainly not least, we ask that you treat each other with the kindness and respect that you yourself would like to be treated. With all that out of the way, let's go ahead and take a look at the satellite view of Vandenberg Space Force Base. You can just start to see in the region just to the south of the pad. Hopefully this will continue for the next 25 minutes. You can see a little pocket of cloud clearing there, so fingers crossed that in the next 26 minutes we'll see that trend continue and we'll have blue skies over Space Launch Complex 4 East. That is the departure point for SpaceX's Falcon 9 rocket today. Since it's sending its satellites into a polar orbit, that means it's going to be heading on a southerly trajectory once it leaves the pad. I want to thank our Spaceflight Now editor, Stephen Young, for running the technical operations of this broadcast today. Our photography team is off, of course, given that this is a West Coast venture, but they'll be back in action before you know it. You can always keep tabs on upcoming launches by heading over to our website, spaceflightnow.com. Just click the launch schedule tab. Coming up next, after today's launch, if all goes well, is a flight lifting off from Space Launch Complex 40 here at Cape Canaveral Space Force Station in Florida. That is a Indonesian communications satellite on behalf of PSN is that customer. Satellite built on top of Boeing's 702 MP BHTS satellite bus. That's going to be launched to a geosynchronous transfer orbit. The satellite will eventually operate in the 113 degrees east position with a roughly 15-year lifespan. So we've got that on tap for you on Monday. Then on Wednesday, the 10th, is the next launch from here at Vandenberg. So a pretty quick turnaround for here at Vandy. See the launch of the Space Development Agency's Tranche 1 transport layer, part of Department of Defense satellite architecture. We'll have much more to say about that as we get closer. And then the following day, we'll be following the progress of, pun intended, the Russian Progress vehicle, keeping tabs on that, making sure that it gets safely to the International Space Station. And then another space station bound flight to close out the week, looking at the launch of a Northrop Grumman Cygnus spacecraft, the first Cygnus XL spacecraft, as a matter of fact. That's looking to launch from Slick 40 coming up on September 14th, so a week from tomorrow. Busy times ahead, certainly. So now's a great time to hit that subscribe button, turn on notifications so that you're never left in the lurch when it comes to our live launch broadcasts or any other additional video content that gets posted to the channel here. Just under 23 minutes to go before this Falcon 9 rocket takes flight from Vandenberg. Let's quickly step through our countdown timeline, let you know the milestones that we have already passed by and what's still on tap for SpaceX today. T-minus 38 minutes is when the SpaceX launch director makes the call for the start of prop load. Do believe SpaceX is currently fueling its Falcon 9 rocket right now. Tanking began at T-minus 35 minutes with the loading of RP-1, which is a rocket-grade kerosene. That happened on the first and the second stages. At the same time, liquid oxygen began to flow on board the rocket's first stage. 30 minutes out is when the cryogenic helium was started to load on board the pressure vessels for the Falcon 9's first stage. Same was true on the second stage a few minutes afterwards. That helium is important because it's used to pressurize the main propellant tanks during flight. The gate that we just came through, the T-minus 23 minutes, is when second stage RP-1 loading wrapped up. Coming up next in just under a minute is the strong back chill down process getting underway. This is when SpaceX thermally conditions the feed lines there at the pad prior to loading liquid oxygen on board the rocket's second stage. Once that's all done and dusted, they'll move on to LOX load on that second stage, beginning at the 16-minute mark. Trucking right along, T-minus 7 minutes is when the engine chill down begins. SpaceX will flow a small amount of liquid oxygen through the plumbing and turbo pumps. That'll help protect the engines from the risk of thermal shock and damage during startup. About 6 minutes before flight, the first stage kerosene tank should be full. Then at T-minus 4.5 minutes, we'll see the retraction of the strong back. We should have eyes on the Falcon 9 rocket by this point in the count. And we'll see the clamp arms open up first, and then the strong back, otherwise referred to as the transporter erector, that will recline roughly 13 degrees away from the Falcon 9 rocket and stay in that position until liftoff. Here at Vandenberg, that 13-degree retraction is the only movement of the strong back. It doesn't pull back any further like we see here at either Pad 39A or Pad 40 in Florida. 3 minutes before takeoff, the first stage liquid oxygen tank should be full. Same will be true at the 2-minute mark for the second stage LOX tank. And then at that point, the Falcon 9 rocket is fully loaded up with 1 million pounds of propellant. In the final 60 seconds, the Falcon 9 rocket enters into its automated sequence. We'll hear that call out saying that the Falcon 9 is in startup. And what that means is that control of the countdown is then handed over from the ground sequencer to the Falcon 9's onboard flight computers. And at the same time, the propellant tanks are brought up to flight pressure. SpaceX launch director will then give their final go for launch call 45 seconds before takeoff. The engine ignition command is issued at T-minus 3 seconds. And if all 9 Merlin engines are healthy and ignite as expected, there are no other technical or meteorological snafus, the Falcon 9 rocket will depart from Pad 4 East. Coming up at 11:06 a.m. Pacific, 2:06 p.m. Eastern, 1806 UTC, or just about 19 and a half minutes from now. Time now T minus 18 minutes, 5 seconds and counting. Talking about the payload that's on board today's Falcon flight, looking at the launch of 24 of SpaceX's Starlink V2 mini optimized satellites. This flight today will be SpaceX's 81st carrying Starlink satellites into low Earth orbit so far this year. With the deployment of these satellites, it will also be the point at which SpaceX passes 2,000 of its Starlink satellites deployed in 2025 alone. According to our friend and orbital expert tracker and astronomer Jonathan McDowell, there are currently a little more than 8,300 Starlink satellites that are currently in orbit before this launch takes place. These optimized versions of the Starlink V2 minis are considerably lighter than the previous iteration of the Starlink V2 minis. With their solar panels unfurled, they have a wingspan of about 100 feet or 30 meters. They use argon Hall effect thrusters for in-orbit maneuvering, built up in the city of Redmond, Washington, which is near Seattle. These will be deployed at about 174 miles or 281 kilometers in altitude at a 97-degree inclination. Just past 16 and a half minutes. How do we eyes on the Falcon 9 rocket at this point in the count? It would be just past the end of the big vent. Liquid oxygen loading on the second stage is about to begin in now less than 16 seconds from now. Taking a look at our live chat here, I want to thank Jeff Hansen, one of our moderators, for a $10 super chat. Thank you, Jeff. Jeff says, go Vandy, go SpaceX, go Falcon 9, go Starlink. Godspeed 1075. Welcome to the Frequent Flyers Club. As for SpaceX and this booster, this is the 20th flight of that particular first stage. We typically show the top 5 of our so-called Falcon 9 frequent flyers. Had a little bit of movement in that recently. Here's where the current top 5 stands as of right now. B1067, which is adorned with a little crown icon above the 67 to note that it is the champion of the boosters, if you will, the most frequent of the frequent flyers. Got a three-way tie now for second place with B1077 coming in third at 23 launches to its name. SpaceX is working to certify its first stage boosters for up to 40 flights each. coming up on the 14-minute mark in the countdown. Since we were just talking about B1075, let's go ahead and take a spell and discuss where it has been before ahead of its 20th flight. B1075 began flying with back to Starlink mission as it will conduct today. Starlink 2-4 lifting off on January 19th of 2023. That was followed up by a mission for the Space Development Agency with the Tranche 0 flight. Those demonstration satellites for various layers that we'll see the SDA deploy. We're off to Starlink land for a little bit with this booster, Starlink 2-9 on May 10th, 5-7 on June 22nd, 6-20 on August 8th, 7-3 on September 25th, 7-6 on October 29th. And then we have a pair of German reconnaissance satellites, the Sarah 2 and 3. SAR highlighted since that's for synthetic aperture radar. Couple more Starlinks after this. It's Starlink 7-12 on January 29th of 2024. 7-16 on March 19th. 9-2 on June 24th. And then a rideshare mission, Transporter 11, carrying 116 satellites on board. And then we're back to Starlink land, bringing us up to the present. 9-17 on September 20th, 9-9 on October 30th, 9-13 on November 24th, 11-3 on December 29th, 11-4 on February 1st of this year, 11-16 on May 23rd, and most recently Starlink 17-2 on July 17th, as it just so happened. And in just shy of 12 minutes from now, we'll see, if all goes well, launch of Starlink 17-9, coming 41 days after its most recent flight. Taking a look back at our live chat, want to thank the more than 1,700 of you who are now watching along with us live today. If you haven't already, you could do us a big favor just by clicking that like button and sharing the stream, allowing some more folks to find their way into this live launch coverage. Especially appreciate all of you who are able to be with us today. I know Saturdays are going to become much more contested for viewership, given that we are now in football season here in the United States. So extra appreciate you taking the time to either have a split screen going on between whichever game you're watching right now, if you are in fact watching a game, and keeping tabs on the progress towards this Falcon flight. I also want to welcome a new channel member, MSun893, joining us with membership at the pad leader level. Welcome aboard, MSun. Glad to have you with us. Falcon 9 launch coming up in just a little more than 10 minutes from now will be SpaceX's 529th Falcon 9 launch to date and the 112th of the year so far. SpaceX still on the hunt for 170 missions before the year's end. Unclear at this point if Astrobotic is going to be ready for the launch of its Griffin 1 mission before year's out with a Falcon Heavy rocket, so the probability is quite high that all of these missions will just be with the Falcon 9 rocket. So let's go ahead and take a beat and talk about SpaceX's workhorse vehicle, Falcon 9, which stands 70 feet or 229 feet in height, has a diameter of 3.66 meters or 12 feet. Of course, the majority of that is the booster. as we just discussed, B-1075, going to make its 20th trip to space today. At the base of the first stage are the 9 Merlin engines, which burn a rocket-grade kerosene and liquid oxygen, producing 1.7 million pounds of thrust. Around the engine compartment are the black carbon fiber landing legs that will be used to land the first stage on the drone ship. Here on the West Coast, SpaceX currently has just the one drone ship, named, of course, I Still Love You. Above the first stage is the inner stage. This is a composite structure consisting of an aluminum honeycomb core, which is surrounded by carbon fiber. In the image on the right-hand side of your screen, you can see the deployable hypersonic grid fins. These are titanium winglets that provide stability and steering for the Falcon 9 as it comes back through the atmosphere, tail first like a big old dart heading towards the drone ship. At the top of the inner stage are 3 mechanical latches that attach to the vehicle's second stage, and at the point of first stage separation from the second stage, high-pressure helium is used to release those latches, and 4 pneumatic pushers ensure a clean separation. Also, the second stage engine nozzle is housed safely inside the interstage adapter until that point of stage separation. Speaking of the rocket's upper stage, second stage of the Falcon 9 is powered by a single modified Merlin engine called a Merlin vacuum engine, or an MVac engine. It's equipped with a large nozzle, which is optimized for burns in the vacuum of space. It produces more than 220,500 pounds of thrust, and like with all Starlink missions, it will be fired twice before the deployment of the 24 Starlink satellites. Like with the first stage, this also burns LOX and RP-1. And following that Starlink deployment, it will have one final deorbit burn, driving it back into the atmosphere, where it's designed to burn up and help to eliminate the risk of creating unnecessary space debris on this mission. Finally, at the top of the Falcon 9 stack are the payload fairings, which are currently encapsulating the 24 Starlink satellites. Fairings are made up of a carbon composite material and stand 13.1 meters or 43 feet in height, and are 5.2 meters or 17.1 feet in diameter. Fairing halves will be recovered a little bit further downrange from where the first stage lands on the drone ship. They will gently splash down under the support of parachutes. Just past the 7-minute mark now. At this point, SpaceX is thermally conditioning the 9 Merlin engines at the base of the first stage booster. Coming up next at the 6-minute mark is when the first stage kerosene tank should be full. As we're closing in on the point at which we'll be able to see the Falcon 9 rocket before it takes flight, let's go ahead and talk about where this Falcon 9 is going to fly once it does leave the pad. Talk a little trajectory, shall we? Falcon 9 rocket will depart, of course, from Space Launch Complex 4 East, there at Vandenberg Space Force Base. As you mentioned early in the broadcast, it will fly a southerly trajectory, send these satellites into their polar orbit. The first stage booster will follow that orange arc you see on your screen. Target a touchdown on the drone ship, of course, I Still Love You. As just mentioned, here's a visual of the fairing halves coming back in and splashing down on the water of the Pacific Ocean. This will happen a little bit further downrange from where the booster lands on the drone ship. Once down safely in the water, SpaceX will recover the fairing halves, place them onto one of their transport vessels, and then bring them back to their facilities at Vandenberg, where they'll be refurbished and turn them around for future flights. Just under 5 minutes to go, we should be getting views of the Falcon 9.
Strong back retract.
And there we go. Still, unfortunately, docked in there at Vandenberg. Not as bad as we've seen it some days. You can actually see the parking lot today. A little bit of obfuscation, though, for the rocket through the combination of some fog out there combined with the vapor from the rocket itself.
Strong back lower has started.
Momentarily, we should see SpaceX push in visually on the upper stage, get a view of those clamp arms opening up, and then the transporter erector will get into motion, reclining about 13 degrees away from the Falcon 9 rocket. There you see the clamp arm nearest to us in motion. And there goes the strong back. As a reminder, here at Vandenberg, the strong back reclines about 13 degrees away from the rocket, and it stays in that position up to and through liftoff. Coming up at the 3-minute mark, the first stage liquid oxygen tank should be full. Should be hearing a call on that right about that time.
Stage 1 LOX load is complete.
And a good call there.
Stage 2 LOX load is complete.
And with that call, the Falcon 9 rocket is now fully loaded with 1 million pounds of propellant. Seeing a little bit of venting there. Those are the ground gas closeouts.
Gas launch closeout has started.
This is SpaceX releasing the remaining liquid oxygen from the feed lines ahead of flight.
Falcon 9 is in startup.
With that call, we're just waiting the SpaceX launch director now to give their final call that they are go for launch.
LD is go for launch.
And with that call, we're going to go ahead and step back on our commentary, and we'll be back with you on the other side of liftoff.
T-minus 30 seconds. T-minus 15 seconds. T-minus 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Ignition. And liftoff of the Falcon 9. Go SpaceX, go Starlink.
Vehicle is pitching downrange.
M1D chamber pressure is nominal.
Power and telemetry nominal.
Vehicle is supersonic. Max Q.
Falcon 9 rocket now fully through the point of greatest aerodynamic pressure on the vehicle, max Q. Coming up on MVAC chill, when they were thermally conditioned the Merlin vacuum engine on the rocket's second stage.
MVAC chill.
Good call there. Some nice views of the Falcon 9 rocket after it climbed through the clouds. We're coming up on a few milestones now in fairly rapid succession. First will be first stage main engine cutoff, or MECO, at about T plus 2 minutes and 25 seconds. That'll be followed up by stage separation and then the ignition of the Merlin vacuum engine on the rocket's upper stage. The payload fairings that are currently encapsulating the Starlink satellites will be jettisoned just before the 3-minute mark. No longer needed at that point in the mission.
Main engine cutoff.
Stage separation confirmed.
MVAC ignition.
And some really nice views of the California coastline as the MVAC engine ignites for the first time on this mission. There go the grid fins deploying to help steer the booster. Coming up on fairing jettison next.
Fairing separation confirmed.
And there go the fairings. Once they make their entry back through the atmosphere, they will deploy parachutes to make a soft water landing in the Pacific Ocean. So far appears to be a nominal flight of the Falcon 9 rocket today. Coming up next, as we're just past the 3.5-minute point in the mission, is the first stage entry burn, which will use 3 out of the 9 Merlin engines at the base of the booster to begin to dramatically slow the vehicle down and set the stage for the landing burn a little bit later on in the flight. A little more than 4.5 minutes into the mission. Looks like the Falcon booster has reached its apogee and is now starting to make its descent towards the drone ship. Those pulses that you're seeing occasionally in between the hypersonic grid fins, those are the cold gas thrusters that help to adjust the booster's attitude, or its positioning, as it begins to orient itself ahead of the entry burn. coming up on 6 missions, or 6 minutes into this mission. The entry burn set to start in just about 10 seconds from now. Want to quickly thank Peter.
Stage 1 entry burn startup.
And there you hear
Stage
the
1
start of.
FPS is saved.
Sorry about that. Call for the start of entry burn. This will last just about a little more than 20 seconds in total.
Stage 1 entry burn shutdown.
Good conclusion to the entry burn. Coming up next, of course, will be the start of the landing burn. So to begin about T plus 7 minutes and 55 seconds into the flight, so roughly a minute from now. Before we get to the start of the landing burn, I want to thank
Stage
Peter
1
Booth
transonic.
for being a member with us at 16 months. Falcon booster traveling below the speed of sound. Peter asking, do we know how many boosters are currently in use? SpaceX has 23 that have flown at least once.
Stage 1 landing burn.
Stage 2 terminal guidance.
Stage 1 landing leg deploy. Stage 1 landing confirmed.
And a good touchdown for B-1075, wrapping up its 20th trip to space and back.
MVAC shutdown.
Nominal orbit insertion.
And a good confirmation there of nominal orbit insertion. At this point in the mission, the upper stage will coast on until T plus 53 minutes and 34 seconds. That'll be followed by a 1-second burn to circularize the orbit. And then the Starlink satellites will be deployed at T plus 1 hour, 2 minutes, and 26 seconds post liftoff. With a good flight of B-1075, let's now turn to our mission stats as they currently stand. As we've mentioned, this was flight number 20 for B-1075, the 529th Falcon 9 rocket launch to date. This was the 112th of the year so far. SpaceX's 160th orbital launch within the last 365 days. This was the 146th orbital flight from Slick 4 East for SpaceX, and the 214th overall orbital launch as well. Here's the bar chart version of the SpaceX launches year over year. Moving on to some recovery stats. This was the 149th good landing on the drone ship. Of course, I still love you. That marked the 407th drone ship landing for SpaceX and the 501st booster landing as well. Finally, with some industry stats, this was the 41st orbital launch from California, the 118th orbital launch from U.S. soil, the 130th from U.S. rocket company. I'll put an asterisk on this audibly. This was actually the 204th orbital launch around the globe. There was a Long March 6A rocket that lifted off at 1634 UTC. We just happened to miss this go around. So China's actually launched 51 times so far this year. And that'll go ahead and do it for our live coverage of the Starlink 17-9 mission. As a reminder, you can always go ahead and head over to our launch schedule tab on the website for an updated list of launches heading to orbit. Our next launch that we're going to be covering is from here at Cape Canaveral Space Force Station, the launch of the SNL satellite on behalf of Indonesian company PSN. Next launch from Vandenberg is coming up on Wednesday, the launch of the Space Development Agency's Tranche 1 Transport Layer mission, a batch of satellites developed by York Space Systems. I want to quickly thank channel member I'm Lita for a $5 super chat, saying love it here. Hit that like button. Thank you, Lita. K2 Hat for a $2 super chat, saying thanks for the great coverage again. Thank you, K2. Thanks to Loki 3000 for a $2 super chat as well. Thank you, Loki. And LJ McCulley joining us with membership at the pad leader level. Or IJ. It might be capital I, actually. Hard to tell. Anyway, thank you for joining us with membership at the pad leader level. We certainly appreciate it. Want to thank our moderators in the chat for helping us out today. Once again, thanks to Jeff Hansen and Rick Donner for holding it down. Thanks as well to our Spaceflight Now editor, Stephen Young, for running the technical operations of the broadcast today. Most importantly, though, thanks to you for wherever you've been watching from. We certainly appreciate your time and attention. And oh, I thought I bookmarked it. Someone made a great comment that I now lost. Basically saying they don't have a TV, so they watch things on their phone, and they chose us over football. So that is a quite high mark, and so we certainly appreciate that. For all of us here at Spaceflight Now, I'm Will Robinson Smith. Remember, be good to yourselves, be good to others. We will see you next time, folks. Enjoy the rest of your weekend, and until next time, bye-bye.